I spent 10 years studying billionaire mindset secrets and found the real difference between rich and poor. I'm going to get straight to the point, because this video isn't about theories or cute motivational quotes. It's about the truth I discovered after spending 10 years obsessively studying how billionaires think, act, and create wealth that seems almost effortless. And here's the crazy part. The real difference between rich and poor has nothing to do with intelligence, talent, or even luck. It's a mental operating system, one that most people aren't even aware exists. If you've ever wondered why some people seem to attract opportunities while others constantly struggle, if you've felt that you're meant for more but something invisible keeps pulling you back, then stay with me, because this might be the moment everything clicks. Because once you truly understand how rich minds interpret reality, you will never see life the same way again. And when awareness shifts, your entire path shifts too. Topic 1. The moment I saw the first billionaire pattern emerge. I remember the moment everything changed. I was sitting in a quiet corner of a library, surrounded by books written by some of the richest people in the world. Warren Buffett, Ray Dalio, Steve Jobs, Sara Blakely, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Oprah, and countless others. At that point, I had already spent years reading, listening, analyzing every interview, every biography, every conversation I could find. And yet, something always felt incomplete, like I was collecting puzzle pieces without truly seeing the picture they formed. But then, that day, something clicked. I realized the real difference wasn't in the strategies, or the industries, or the timing. It was something much more subtle, but infinitely more powerful. It was the way they interpreted failure, risk, time, and possibility. It was the way they thought. And when I began comparing their stories, not the polished versions, but the raw ones, patterns started appearing so clearly that it almost felt obvious. How did I not see it before? The wealthy weren't lucky. They weren't born different. They simply learned a different mental software from the rest of the world. For most people, life happens to them. For the wealthy, life responds to them. One of the first examples that slapped me in the face was Sara Blakely, founder of Spanx. When she was a kid, her father would ask at dinner, "What did you fail at this week?" He celebrated failure. He trained her brain to associate failing with progress. When you grow up believing failure is proof that you're moving forward, not proof that you're not good enough, every action becomes easier. Decisions become easier. Risk becomes normal. You don't freeze, you attempt. You don't fear judgment, you pursue the result. Before Spanx became a billion-dollar empire, Sara heard no hundreds of times. Most people would have given up. But Sara wasn't trained to stop at no. She was trained to see no as part of the road. Compare that to how most people grow up. We're taught to avoid mistakes, avoid risks, avoid embarrassment. We're conditioned to believe that security is better than growth, and that trying something new is dangerous. We fear losing more than we desire winning. And this single mental pattern silently shapes our entire future. That's when I realized something so simple, yet so life-changing. Rich and poor are not separated by money. They're separated by mindset conditioning. If you teach a child to fear failure, you create an adult who avoids opportunity. But if you teach them that failure is the doorway to mastery, you create someone unstoppable. Another moment of clarity came when I studied the beginnings of Jeff Bezos. Before Amazon became what it is today, Bezos left a stable job, one of the most secure positions in one of the most prestigious hedge funds, to start an online bookstore in a world where barely anyone bought anything on the internet. People thought he was insane. But Bezos didn't evaluate ideas based on, "What do I have to lose?" He evaluated them based on, "What might I miss if I don't try?" That single shift is one of the greatest differences I've seen between wealthy and struggling thinkers. The poor mindset is anchored in fear-based calculations. The rich mindset is anchored in possibility-based decisions. And it doesn't stop there. Look at Warren Buffett. Do you know what he says is the biggest reason people never build wealth? Not lack of money, not lack of opportunity, not lack of intelligence. He said the real enemy is impatience. People want results fast. They want to get rich next month. They want shortcuts. They want guarantees. They want the reward without the process. Billionaires, on the other hand, see time as their greatest ally. They invest patiently, They focus on long-term compounding, and they resist the urge to chase shiny objects. Buffett once said, "Wealth is the transfer of money from the impatient to the patient." And once you let that sink in, everything about the wealth game starts making sense. But here's what hit me the hardest. The wealthy do not wait for permission to believe in themselves. They decide, they declare, they act, they commit. They know they will become successful long before anyone else sees any evidence. Elon Musk said he never doubted Tesla would work, even when experts laughed in his face, even when employees left, even when people predicted his bankruptcy. He saw the vision so clearly that it didn't matter if no one else understood. That's the billionaire mindset. They don't need external validation to build internal certainty. But everyday people, they wait. They wait for signs. They wait for confidence. They wait for the right time. They wait for approval. They wait for someone to believe in them first. And while they wait, years pass. Opportunities fade. Potential shrinks. During those 10 years of studying billionaires, I realized something almost uncomfortable. Wealthy people don't have easier lives. They have stronger meaning. They have stronger emotional resilience. They navigate problems with a sense of power instead of panic. When something goes wrong, they think, "How do I solve this?" Not, "Why is this happening to me?" That single difference changes everything. It's not that they don't feel fear. They just refuse to make decisions from it. The more I studied, the more undeniable the truth became. The rich mindset doesn't seek certainty before action. It creates certainty through action. The poor mindset needs proof before believing. The rich mindset believes until the proof arrives. And that's when the first great realization crystallized within me. Wealth is not built from strategy first. It is built from identity. You become wealthy internally long before you ever become wealthy externally. Your habits follow your beliefs. Your actions follow your emotions. Your success follows your internal standards. Change the identity, and everything else aligns automatically. Topic 2. Why the rich think in cause and the poor think in effect. The second major pattern that hit me during my 10-year deep dive into billionaire psychology was something so fundamental, so deeply woven into the very fabric of how people think, that once I understood it, every difference between wealth and struggle suddenly made perfect sense. It wasn't about intelligence. It wasn't about opportunity. It wasn't about privilege. It was this: rich minds think in cause, while poor minds think in effect. And this single shift changes everything, because it determines whether you see yourself as the creator of your life or as the victim of it. I first noticed this pattern while studying Oprah's rise from unimaginable adversity to becoming one of the most influential women on the planet. Her story is filled with pain, trauma, obstacles that would break most people. But what fascinated me wasn't the story itself. It was the mindset behind it. Oprah refused to interpret her life as something happening to her. She saw herself as someone with the power to shape meaning, shape purpose, shape destiny. Even when circumstances were overwhelming, she didn't surrender her inner authority. She kept asking herself, "What can I learn from this? What can I create from this? What is this shaping me for?" That's causal thinking. That's the mental software of wealth. In contrast, when I listened to interviews with people who constantly struggled financially, emotionally, or professionally, there was one recurring theme. Their language revolved around effect. Things happened to them. Circumstances controlled them. The economy decided. Their boss decided. Their parents' mistakes decided. It was always external. And here's the brutal truth most people don't want to hear. When you believe life is happening to you, you automatically give away the power to change it. You become a passive observer instead of an active creator. This difference is so subtle, yet so powerful, that once you notice it, you start seeing it everywhere. Look at Elon Musk again. When most people see a problem, something too big, too unrealistic, too complicated, they freeze. They think, well, if no one else has solved it, who am I to try? But Musk approaches the world like an engineer of reality. He assumes problems can be solved. He assumes new possibilities can be created. He assumes that if the solution doesn't exist yet, it simply means no one has tried the right approach. When he couldn't find a suitable rocket supplier, he didn't stop. He built SpaceX. When Tesla was weeks away from bankruptcy, he didn't collapse mentally. He doubled his focus. That's causal mindset in its purest form. You don't wait for conditions to improve. You create the conditions. And then I compared that to how most people think. They wait for motivation before taking action. They wait for confidence before trying something new. They wait for clarity before making a decision. But motivation isn't a cause, it's an effect. Confidence isn't a cause, it's an effect. Clarity isn't a cause, it's an effect. You don't receive confidence before doing the thing. You build confidence by doing the thing. You don't receive clarity before starting. You create clarity by starting. The wealthy know this intuitively. The poor never learned it. One of the clearest examples of causal thinking comes from Warren Buffett again. He didn't become one of the richest men alive by reacting to market swings. He didn't let headlines dictate his decisions. He didn't rely on emotional ups and downs to guide his strategy. He acted from principles, not impulses. And here's what he once said that explains everything you need to know. The most important investment you can make is in yourself. Think about that deeply. He didn't say stocks. He didn't say real estate. He didn't say business models. He said yourself. Because he understands that the external world is a mirror of internal growth. When you upgrade yourself, the world responds. Meanwhile, most people are trained to react. They react to bills. They react to fear. They react to uncertainty. They react to the opinion of others. They react to their past. But billionaires are not reactive thinkers. They are generative thinkers. They generate solutions. They generate opportunities. They generate new ways of seeing the same old problems. They generate emotional states that empower action instead of draining it. And this is where the mindset split becomes undeniable. Poor thinkers believe emotion must be felt before taking action. Rich thinkers believe emotion can be created through action. That's why the wealthy take imperfect action quickly. They know the emotional state will follow. Meanwhile, people who struggle stay stuck waiting for the perfect moment, which never arrives. I saw this pattern again in the early story of Steve Jobs. When he returned to Apple in the late 90s, the company was 90 days from collapse. Most people would have panicked. Most people would have focused on the effect, the debt, the competition, the lack of innovation. But Jobs attacked the cause. He eliminated unnecessary products. He recentered the company around simplicity and excellence. He infused the culture with meaning and vision again. He changed the cause, and the effect transformed. Apple didn't just recover, it revolutionized the world. That's causal thinking at the highest level. And here's a shocking thing I learned. Rich minds interpret setbacks as information. Poor minds interpret setbacks as identity. When something goes wrong, the poor thinker says, "Of course this happens to me. I knew I wasn't good enough." The rich thinker says, "Interesting. What is this showing me? How do I adjust?" Same event, completely different mental framing. One framing keeps you trapped, the other frees you. As I kept studying more billionaires, I noticed they share a mental rhythm that most people never experience. They make a decision, and the world adjusts around it. Not because they control the world, but because decisive energy reshapes reality. When you move with intention, people respond differently. Opportunities respond differently. Your mind responds differently. Decisions generate momentum. Momentum generates clarity. Clarity generates confidence. And confidence generates results. That's the causal chain. You start it. When people struggle financially, emotionally, professionally, it's nearly always because they're living on the opposite chain. They wait for results to give them confidence. They wait for confidence to give them clarity. They wait for clarity to give them momentum. They wait for momentum to help them make a decision. And by the time they're finally ready to act, the opportunity is passed. The wealthy don't wait for the environment. They create the environment. And as all these patterns unfolded in my research, the truth hit me in the most profound way. Becoming rich is not about money. It is about reclaiming your identity as the cause of your life. The moment you stop saying, "This is happening to me," and start saying, "This is happening because of me," your entire reality shifts. You stop living in reaction. You start living in creation. And this is the mental foundation upon which every billionaire builds their empire. Topic 3. The Wealth Compass. How billionaires see opportunity where others see nothing. There is a moment in anyone's journey toward wealth when they finally realize that money doesn't come from hard work alone. It doesn't come from talent alone, education alone, or even ambition alone. Money comes from one thing above all: the ability to recognize opportunity before the rest of the world sees it. This is where the mindset of billionaires becomes almost mystical, because while most people walk through life seeing problems, obstacles, limitations, and closed doors, the wealthy seem to move through the same world and somehow find openings, possibilities, angles, and ideas that weren't visible before. It's not that they have a different world, it's that they have a different lens, and that lens is what I call the wealth compass. I first noticed this while studying the story of Howard Schultz, the man behind Starbucks. He didn't invent coffee, he didn't invent cafes, he didn't invent espresso machines, but he saw something no one else had noticed. He saw that coffee could become an emotional experience, a lifestyle, a daily ritual, a third place between home and work. Most people saw a cup of coffee. Schultz saw a global brand. That's the wealth compass at work. It isn't about seeing what is. It's about sensing what could be. It's the ability to detect the faint signal of value hidden beneath what others dismiss as ordinary. And that pattern repeats itself over and over again. Look at Airbnb. The founders didn't invent spare rooms or guests or mattresses. But where most people saw inconvenience, they saw an opportunity. They saw a shift in culture, a growing desire for authentic travel, a dissatisfaction with hotels. While others saw risk, they saw possibility. It always amazed me how the wealthy consistently discover doors that seemed invisible to the rest of the world. But after years of studying them, I finally understood the truth. The opportunities were never invisible. Most people simply never trained their minds to look. The wealth compass begins with a simple but profound mental habit: curiosity. While poor thinkers dismiss ideas instantly, rich thinkers linger in possibility. They ask deeper questions. They explore the what if instead of shutting it down. Curiosity is not entertainment for them. It is a skill. It's the skill that helps them see 10 steps further than everyone else. But curiosity alone isn't enough. The second part of the wealth compass is something that truly separates wealthy mindsets from struggling mindsets: pattern recognition. Billionaires have an uncanny ability to notice trends, shifts, and behaviors in society before they become mainstream. They sense where attention is moving, where frustration is growing, where people feel unmet needs, and where technology is evolving. It's almost like they can see the direction of the wind long before the storm arrives. Jeff Bezos is the perfect example of this. When he launched Amazon, he didn't do it because books were exciting. He did it because he saw the trend no one else was paying attention to. Online shopping was growing at 2,300% per year. He didn't build Amazon around books. He built it around a future that only he could see clearly. He wasn't responding to the present. He was betting on the future. That's the wealth compass operating at full power. Another example is Henry Ford. People always quote him saying, "If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses." But what they miss is the deeper truth behind that statement. Ford didn't look at the world as it was. He looked at the world through the eyes of progress. He saw a problem, the limitation of transportation, and he refused to accept the current framework as the final answer. He didn't see horses. He saw movement. He saw speed. He saw the future of mobility. That vision created a revolution, and that mental ability to detach from the limitation and focus on the possibility is precisely what keeps the wealthy ahead of the world. But the wealth compass of billionaires doesn't operate only through intellect. It also operates through emotion. And this is something that surprised me during my research, because we tend to think of wealthy individuals as hyper-rational, purely logical, almost robotic in their decision-making. But it's not true. The wealthy feel deeply. They feel opportunities emotionally before they understand them rationally. They trust their instincts, their excitement, their inner pull. They sense when something is aligned before they can explain it. This emotional intuition often leads them to ideas others overlook simply because the logic isn't obvious yet. But emotional intelligence is a form of logic, the logic of the future. That's why so many of the wealthiest people in the world took risks that seemed absurd at the time. The founders of Uber built a company around an idea that most investors laughed at. Who would get into a stranger's car? Who would trust a phone app that much? But the founders weren't focused on what people currently believed. They were focused on where human behavior was evolving. They sensed a global frustration with taxis, poor service, outdated systems. That emotional signal guided them to one of the most disruptive business models in modern history. The difference between the rich and the poor becomes painfully clear when you look at how each group interprets ideas. A poor thinker hears a new idea and immediately lists reasons why it won't work. A rich thinker hears the same idea and asks, if it did work, what would need to happen first? One mindset kills opportunity instantly. The other gives it a chance to breathe. The wealth compass is not about intelligence or education. It's about perception. It's about training your mind to stop rejecting ideas by default. It's about exploring each idea long enough to see if it contains a seed of potential. Wealthy individuals understand that ideas rarely appear fully formed. They appear as whispers, as sensations, as something small that could become something great. But you must be willing to look. You must be willing to lean into uncertainty long enough for clarity to emerge. And this is why the world often misunderstands wealthy individuals. People think rich minds are luckier, more gifted, more creative. But the truth is much simpler. They search in places others never consider. They allow themselves to dream without instantly shutting down those dreams. They respect possibility. They respect imagination. They respect the unseen potential within the ordinary. That respect becomes a compass, one that always points toward opportunity. After 10 years studying billionaire psychology, this principle became one of the clearest differences between rich and poor. The poor look at the world and see what's missing. The rich look at the world and see what's possible. The poor see obstacles. The rich see openings. The poor see saturation. The rich see innovation. The poor see reasons to stop. The rich see reasons to begin. The wealth compass is not magic. It's not luck. It's a mindset you build. And once you develop it, you begin seeing opportunities that were always there. You were simply blind to them before. Topic 4. The identity shift. Why the rich decide who they are before they become it. If there is one truth that shook me to my core after a decade studying billionaire psychology, it's this. Wealthy individuals decide on their identity long before the world agrees with it. They choose who they are becoming first, and everything else, from habits to decisions to opportunities, aligns around that internal declaration. Meanwhile, most people wait for external evidence before giving themselves permission to believe. And that single difference shapes destinies. I first realized this while studying the early life of Jim Carrey, long before fame, long before wealth. One night, when he was still broke, unknown, and struggling, he drove his beat-up car to Mulholland Drive, looked out at the city lights, and wrote himself a check for $10 million for acting services rendered, dated it for the future, and carried it in his wallet for years. At that moment, he wasn't waiting for Hollywood to choose him. He chose himself. He didn't wait for proof. He created the identity first. And what most people don't understand is that this act wasn't about the money. It was about shifting his identity into alignment with the version of himself he knew he could become. The world eventually caught up with that identity. That's the billionaire mindset in action. Rich thinkers shape their identity intentionally. Poor thinkers let their identity be shaped by circumstances, failures, opinions, and fears. The poor mindset says, I will believe in myself once I succeed. The rich mindset says, I will succeed because I believe in myself now. It's a reversal so simple yet so powerful that once you internalize it, your entire life begins to recalibrate. This identity-first principle appeared again when I studied Arnold Schwarzenegger. Long before he was famous, before he won any bodybuilding titles, he already walked, trained, spoke, and thought like a champion. People around him used to laugh when he said he would become the greatest bodybuilder in the world, and later, the biggest movie star in Hollywood. But the external world didn't matter to him. His identity was already formed. He was merely catching up to it. If your self-image does not match your goals die. Arnold refused to let that mismatch exist, and this pattern kept showing up in the most unexpected places. When Elon Musk was building SpaceX before any rocket succeeded, Before any investor believed it was possible, he already identified himself as someone capable of reducing the cost of space travel and pushing humanity toward multiplanetary life. It sounded insane to everyone else. But the identity was set. The mission was internalized. And because identity shapes behavior and behavior shapes outcomes, reality eventually adjusted to match the inner decision. Meanwhile, most people allow their identity to be sculpted by their past. They carry the emotional weight of failures from years ago. They replay mistakes over and over, reinforcing a version of themselves that no longer represents who they could become. They see themselves as someone who always struggles, never finishes things, doesn't have luck, isn't smart enough, isn't confident enough. They reinforce an identity built from fear instead of potential. This is where the divide between rich and poor becomes almost heartbreaking. The wealthy build from the future backward. The poor build from the past forward. The wealthy choose the identity they want to grow into. The poor recycle the identity they want to escape from. One lives in possibility, the other lives in memory. During my research, I found something fascinating. Almost every billionaire I studied had a moment of identity declaration, a moment when they decided who they would be long before they had any real proof. Oprah declared she would create a life of meaning and service, even when she was just a local news anchor. Steve Jobs declared he would make a dent in the universe, long before Apple even had a product that worked. Jeff Bezos declared that Amazon would be the most customer-centric company in the world when it was still operating out of his garage. Identity comes first, evidence comes second. What people fail to understand is that identity is not built from external success. It's built from internal standards. It's the quiet decision you make about who you are even when no one else sees it. And this is why poor thinkers struggle so much. They try to change their life without changing the identity that created their life. They try to build wealth with the identity of someone who doubts themselves. They try to build success with the identity of someone who feels unworthy. They try to build confidence with the identity of someone who fears failure. It's like trying to upgrade the house without upgrading the blueprint. The wealthy, on the other hand, guard their identity like a sacred asset. They treat it as the foundation of everything. They feed it with books, mentors, environments, habits, and decisions that reinforce who they are becoming. They know that every choice is a vote for the identity they want to strengthen. And this is why they make decisions quickly. When your identity is clear, decision-making becomes simple. Doubt only enters when identity is unstable. The most powerful example of identity in action came when I studied Walt Disney. Before Disneyland existed, people called his vision unrealistic, impossible, childish, even foolish. But Disney didn't see himself as a cartoonist. He saw himself as a storyteller capable of creating entire worlds. That was the identity. Everything else, animation, films, theme parks, became expressions of that identity. And because his inner identity was expansive, his creations reshaped global culture. Your identity becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe you are someone who creates value, you behave in ways that produce value. If you believe you are someone worthy of wealth, you act in ways that attract wealth. If you believe you are someone who always finds solutions, you automatically look for opportunities instead of obstacles. Life bends to the shape of your self-image. But if you believe you are someone limited, someone unlucky, someone stuck, you make choices that reinforce that belief. You miss opportunities, you hesitate, you self-sabotage, not because the world is against you, but because your identity is pulling you back into the familiar. What my 10-year study taught me is this: identity is the engine behind all achievement. When poor thinkers try to change their circumstances, they use willpower alone. When rich thinkers try to change their circumstances, they use identity power. One burns out, the other breaks through. And perhaps the most liberating truth is this: identity is a choice. You are not obligated to remain who you've been. You can decide right now who you want to become. And once that decision is made, truly made, your behavior, energy, and environment start to rearrange themselves around that new identity. That's when life begins to shift. That's when opportunities start appearing. That's when confidence becomes natural. That's when success becomes inevitable. Because wealth doesn't start with money. Wealth starts with identity. Topic 5. The emotional blueprint of wealth. How billionaires master their inner state before mastering the game. After 10 years of studying billionaires, one realization stood out more than any financial strategy, business model, negotiation tactic, or productivity hack. It was this: wealth is emotional before it is financial. Billionaires master their inner state long before they master the external game. They understand something most people never realize. Your emotional home, your default internal state, either attracts wealth or repels it. And unless you upgrade that emotional blueprint, no amount of hard work or opportunity can compensate for a mind that constantly pulls itself back into fear, doubt, scarcity, or overwhelm. I didn't understand this at first. Most people don't. We're taught to focus on logic, strategy, structure, hustle. We believe the key to wealth lies in working harder, being smarter, or having better connections. But every time I studied the real story behind someone's success, I kept finding the same foundation. Wealthy individuals had developed emotional mastery. They felt differently. They thought differently. They responded differently. Their internal world was not chaotic or reactive. It was intentional. And because their inner state was stable, their decisions became powerful. And powerful decisions over time accumulate into extraordinary success. One of the clearest examples came from observing the way Ray Dalio, one of the richest investors in the world, handled losses. He has said repeatedly that painful experiences are the source of his best insights. While most people face loss and collapse emotionally, Dalio faces loss and expands emotionally. He doesn't panic. He doesn't spiral. Instead, he steps back, breathes, observes, analyzes, and asks, "What is this teaching me? How can I grow from this?" That emotional stability is rare, but it's also trained. Dalio learned to regulate his emotional state so effectively that he built a company culture around radical honesty, feedback, reflection, and improvement. That level of emotional maturity is not an accident. It is the emotional blueprint of wealth. Contrast that with the emotional blueprint of scarcity. When something goes wrong, when a deal falls through, when an idea fails, when money tightens, most people panic. They see disaster. They feel overwhelmed. Their breath constricts. Their thinking narrows. Their creativity shuts down. Fear hijacks the brain. And in that state, they make poor decisions. They act impulsively, irrationally, or not at all. They pull back instead of stepping forward. The result is simple. Emotional instability leads to financial instability. Not because the world is against them, but because their nervous system is. This is something the wealthy understand instinctively. Your emotions influence your decisions. Your decisions shape your actions. Your actions create your results, and your results reinforce your emotional state. It's a loop, and billionaires take responsibility for the starting point of that loop, their emotional state. They don't leave it to chance. They don't let the world dictate how they feel. They don't allow circumstances to control their nervous system. They master their inner world so the outer world becomes easier to navigate. One of the most striking emotional patterns I discovered while studying wealthy individuals is that they experience fear differently. They feel fear just like everyone else, but they interpret it through a different lens. For the poor mindset, fear is a stop sign. It means be careful, pull back, don't risk this, stay where it's safe. For the rich mindset, fear is information. It's a signal pointing toward growth. It means pay attention, prepare, act wisely, move forward with awareness. Fear doesn't stop them, it sharpens them. And that difference, how you interpret fear, determines whether your life expands or contracts. I saw this emotional pattern again when I studied Richard Branson. His entire career is built on bold moves, starting Virgin Records with almost no resources, launching Virgin Atlantic to compete with giants, creating Virgin Galactic to enter the space industry. But behind all of these decisions was not recklessness, but emotional courage. He cultivated the ability to stay calm while others panicked, to stay imaginative while others doubted, to stay committed while others hesitated. Branson once said he makes decisions quickly because he trusts himself emotionally. That trust is wealth. That internal certainty is wealth. His emotional blueprint guides his financial destiny. And then there's Oprah, whose emotional intelligence is one of the great engines of her success. She has said repeatedly that she learned early in life that she could not control how others treated her, but she could control the meaning she attached to those experiences. That single emotional skill allowed her to transform trauma into purpose, rejection into resilience, and pain into power. People often attribute her wealth to her communication abilities or her business acumen, but the truth is deeper. Oprah mastered her emotional world, and because of that, she created an empire rooted in emotional connection, empathy, and authenticity. Emotional mastery doesn't eliminate challenges. Billionaires face massive stress, bigger deals, bigger risks, bigger responsibilities, but their nervous system is trained to handle it. When chaos hits, they center themselves. They slow down, they breathe, they choose meaning intentionally. They remain the cause instead of the effect. This emotional strength gives them an unfair advantage in life because while others crumble under pressure, they perform. Pressure becomes a forge, not a threat. But emotional mastery isn't only about handling fear or pressure. It's also about managing expansion. Most people aren't emotionally prepared for success. They think they want wealth, but deep down, they fear visibility, responsibility, judgment, or failure at a higher level. They sabotage without realizing it. They shrink from opportunities. They procrastinate, delay, overthink. They stay small because their emotional world has not expanded enough to hold the magnitude of the life they claim to desire. I saw this repeatedly in the stories of individuals who suddenly received large amounts of money through inheritance, lottery winnings, or unexpected windfalls and lost it quickly. The problem wasn't financial illiteracy. The problem was emotional illiteracy. Their emotional blueprint was still tuned to scarcity, chaos, or insecurity, and that blueprint pulled them back to their internal baseline. Wealth without emotional stability collapses. Wealth with emotional mastery multiplies. And this is the truth that changed me. If you cannot regulate your emotions at your current level, you will not sustain the next level. Wealth is not about deserving more money. Wealth is about becoming the person who can emotionally handle more money. This is why billionaires invest so heavily in personal growth, meditation, therapy, coaching, journaling, and self-reflection. They understand that emotional evolution is financial evolution. They know the inner world and the outer world are the same game, just reflected at different depths. What differentiates the wealthy is not that they have no emotional wounds, but that they take responsibility for healing them. They do not run from discomfort. They use it as a catalyst. They do not suppress emotions. They process them. They do not ignore their inner world. They study it. They build themselves internally to handle the magnitude of the life they are building externally. That is the emotional blueprint of wealth. And once you understand this, everything changes. You stop chasing money and start cultivating the emotional capacity to hold money. You stop seeking shortcuts and start strengthening the source of all achievement, your inner state. You stop reacting to life and start creating from a higher emotional baseline. Because without emotional mastery, success feels heavy, frightening, or impossible. But with emotional mastery, success begins to feel natural, aligned, and inevitable. Topic 6. The billionaire relationship with time. Why the rich play a different game while others run out of breath. There is one principle that differentiates the rich from the poor so profoundly that once you understand it, you begin to see why wealth seems to flow naturally to some people and slip endlessly through the fingers of others. It is the way they relate to time. Time is not just a resource for the wealthy. It is a strategy, a weapon, a multiplier. And the moment I saw how billionaires see time, everything about their success finally made sense. The poor mindset, without even realizing it, is trapped in short-term thinking. It is anchored in survival, urgency, impatience, and the endless pursuit of immediate gratification. But the rich mindset operates on a completely different plane. It sees time not as something to escape, but as something to invest. It sees the long term not as an obstacle, but as the path. Billionaires build slowly so they can grow exponentially later. Poor thinkers chase fast rewards and end up stuck in cycles that never lead anywhere. The first time I truly understood this was when I studied Warren Buffett's early decades. Today, everyone knows him as one of the richest men in the world, the Oracle of Omaha, a genius investor. But what most people overlook is that 99% of his wealth came after he turned 50. Think about that. Buffett didn't make a fortune quickly. He made it through compounding, patience, discipline, and an almost impossible level of long-term thinking. While the world jumped from opportunity to opportunity, burned out, got distracted, and chased quick wins, Buffett remained steady. He didn't rush. He didn't get seduced by shiny objects. He let time do what time does best: multiply. His secret wasn't genius. It was patience. And yet, patience is the one thing most people refuse to cultivate. They want results now. They want success now. They want money now. And because of that, they constantly sabotage themselves. They quit too early. They panic too soon. They shift directions before momentum has time to build. They never stay long enough in the process for the payoff to arrive. Without long-term thinking, you're working against the clock. With long-term thinking, the clock starts working for you. Another person who demonstrates this brilliantly is Jeff Bezos. When he founded Amazon, he told early investors that the company would not be profitable for many years. Most businesses aim to become profitable quickly. Bezos didn't care about immediate profits. He cared about long-term dominance. He reinvested everything back into innovation, infrastructure, systems, and customer experience. He sacrificed short-term comfort for long-term power. People criticized him for years. They said the model was flawed. They said Amazon is losing money. Bezos didn't flinch. He wasn't playing the same game. He wasn't building a store. He was building an ecosystem. And today, Amazon is one of the largest companies on Earth because its founder understood something most people never learn: time rewards those who respect it. But perhaps one of the most surprising lessons I learned was this: billionaires treat time as their most sacred asset. While most people treat money as precious and time as disposable, wealthy individuals do the opposite. They protect their time fiercely. They delegate not to save effort but to buy back hours. They schedule their days around priorities, not distractions. They invest their hours the same way they invest their money, with clarity, intention, and an obsession for long-term returns. I saw this reflected in the daily routines of some of the most successful entrepreneurs. They allocate specific time for thinking, not just doing. Bill Gates, for example, is famous for his Think Weeks, during which he isolates himself with books, ideas, notes, and reflections. While most people are drowning in busyness, Gates steps away to build deeper clarity. He understands that thinking time is not luxury. It is leverage. It is the place where billion-dollar ideas are born. Poor thinkers don't value thinking time because they believe productivity is about constant action. But billionaires know productivity is about intelligent direction. 1 hour of strategic reflection can save 100 hours of wasted effort. Time magnifies clarity, and clarity magnifies results. The rich mindset also understands a subtle truth about time: urgency destroys creativity. When you're desperate, pressured, impatient, or emotionally overwhelmed, your brain cannot access the calm, imaginative state required for innovation or breakthrough solutions. Billionaires are masters at reducing emotional urgency. They stay calm under pressure because calmness gives them access to better thinking. Their relationship with time protects their creativity. On the other hand, people who struggle financially are often caught in a cycle of emotional urgency. The pressure of bills, responsibilities, and problems creates a mental loop where survival overrides strategy. In that state, decisions are reactive, not visionary. Short-term fear kills long-term growth. It's not that poor thinkers lack intelligence, it's that they lack time perspective. They are mentally cornered by the present. One of the most powerful examples of long-term time thinking came from studying Elon Musk's timeline for SpaceX and Tesla. These companies faced years of losses, criticism, technical failures, and near bankruptcy. But Musk never built them for short-term success. He built them for decades into the future. He wasn't thinking about next quarter, he was thinking about the next century. Most people cannot imagine suffering for years in pursuit of something that may not pay off for decades. Yet that is exactly how historic breakthroughs are born. Poor thinkers underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years and overestimate what they can achieve in 10 days. Rich thinkers reverse that. They build slowly but intentionally. They know small efforts compound. They know consistency beats intensity. They know time magnifies everything, good or bad. So they plant seeds today that most people don't see the value of until years later. This understanding of time also explains why wealthy individuals tend to take bigger risks. Long-term thinking removes the emotional pressure from temporary setbacks. If you're thinking in decades, a bad month doesn't matter. A failed idea doesn't matter. A lost investment doesn't matter. Time gives you resilience. Time gives you the emotional cushion to keep moving forward. Billionaires aren't fearless. They're patient. And here's the truth that most people overlook. Impatience is expensive. Impatience pushes you into bad deals, bad partnerships, bad habits, bad timing. Impatience leads to quitting too soon. Impatience destroys careers, businesses, and potential. Poverty isn't created by lack of opportunity. It's created by lack of time perspective. After studying the wealthiest individuals in the world, I learned something transformative. Wealth is not a race, it's a rhythm. The wealthy move through life with a different internal tempo. Steady, calm, intentional, strategic. They're not rushing, they're aligning, they're building, they're compounding. They're letting time do the heavy lifting. Because when you learn to work with time instead of against it, life becomes less about chasing and more about creating. You stop rushing. You start building. You stop panicking. You start planning. You stop reacting. You start sculpting your future from a place of confidence and clarity. This is why the rich seem to always win. It's not the money. It's not the intelligence. It's the long-term relationship with time. They play a game most people never learned to play. They operate on a horizon most people never stretch their vision to see. And once you understand this principle, truly understand it, your entire approach to life changes. You stop asking, how fast can I succeed? And start asking, who do I need to become so that success becomes inevitable over time? That is the moment you stop chasing wealth and begin creating it. Topic 7. The wealth energy field. Why billionaires attract resources, people, and opportunities with unshakable certainty. There is a strange phenomenon that appears over and over when you study billionaires closely. It almost feels mystical until you understand the psychology and neuroscience behind it. It's this magnetic force they seem to carry, a presence, a certainty, a gravitational pull that makes people want to support them, invest in them, follow them, partner with them, and open doors for them. It's not charisma, although charisma can be part of it. It's not luck, although it can look like luck. It's energetic, it's psychological, it's identity-based, and I call it the wealth energy field. This field is not about being loud, extroverted, or forceful. It's about alignment. It's about the internal coherence between belief, intention, identity, and action. When a billionaire speaks, you can feel the conviction behind their words. They don't hope their ideas will work. They expect them to. They don't wait for the world to validate them. They validate their own vision so deeply that the world eventually adjusts to it. That level of certainty is rare, and certainty is magnetic. People follow clarity. People follow confidence. People follow individuals who move through the world with intentional energy. One of the earliest examples I noticed was from studying Steve Jobs. Whether you appreciate him or not, you cannot deny the almost hypnotic influence he had over teams, investors, and entire markets. He didn't convince people with logic alone. He convinced them with belief. His internal certainty was so powerful that it altered how others perceived possibility. People worked harder for him, innovated more boldly for him, and believed in visions that seemed impossible because Jobs believed first. That is the wealth energy field in action. It transforms the energy of a room. It elevates standards. It makes people feel part of something larger than themselves. Oprah carries the same quality but expresses it through empathy instead of intensity. When she speaks, people listen, not because she demands attention, but because her presence communicates deep emotional truth. She moves with groundedness, purpose, connection, and authenticity. This too is wealth energy. It is the ability to create trust through identity alignment. Wealth, after all, flows where trust exists. Billionaires understand that trust is not built only through competence, but through congruence, the alignment of who you say you are with how you behave and how you make others feel. Another powerful example is Elon Musk. Even when his companies were collapsing, workers were quitting, rockets were exploding, and critics were predicting disaster, Musk carried a level of unwavering certainty that kept the mission alive. His energy field didn't come from arrogance. It came from devotion to his vision. People sense when someone is deeply committed to something meaningful. They sense when a person is willing to endure discomfort, ridicule, and failure because the mission is bigger than personal ego. That kind of energy inspires loyalty and attracts resources. Investors took insane risks on Musk not because everything looked promising, but because he radiated belief so intensely that people trusted his direction more than their own doubts. What I realized after studying countless stories like these is that wealthy individuals don't just attract opportunities, they attract people who are aligned with their energy. Because energy recognizes energy. High-commitment minds are drawn to high-commitment minds. Purpose-driven people are drawn to purpose-driven people. Confidence amplifies confidence. Billionaires understand this, and they intentionally cultivate an internal world that signals clarity, ambition, emotional stability, and possibility. Their mindset becomes a beacon that others follow. Meanwhile, the poor mindset creates the opposite kind of field, an energy of doubt, insecurity, hesitation, and fear. This energy repels opportunity, repels support, repels collaboration, not because people want to be cruel, but because uncertainty weakens trust. When someone doubts themselves, everyone feels it. When someone minimizes their vision, people take them less seriously. When someone talks small, acts small, and dreams small, potential partners subconsciously categorize them as low-opportunity individuals. Energy communicates faster than words. Before someone hears what you say, they feel what you are. This is why two people can walk into the same room with the same idea, and one gets funded while the other gets ignored. The difference isn't the idea, it's the identity level behind the idea. Wealthy thinkers present themselves not as someone begging for opportunity, but as someone already aligned with success. Their energy doesn't say, "Please choose me." It says, "This is happening, with or without you." One of the most striking examples of this energetic difference came from Sara Blakely, who built Spanx into a billion-dollar empire while owning 100% of the company. In countless interviews, investors and executives admitted that they underestimated her idea. But they didn't underestimate her. She carried such conviction, clarity, and lightness that people naturally wanted to help her, support her, and collaborate with her. Her energy was not forceful. It was joyful, confident, playful, and committed. That combination is rare and extremely magnetic. Another part of the wealth energy field is emotional neutrality. Billionaires don't communicate desperation. They don't radiate neediness. They don't hold energy that says, "I need this to work or I'll fall apart." Instead, they hold the energy of course this will work, and if it doesn't, I will adjust and keep going until it does. That emotional independence creates psychological safety for others. People feel more confident trusting someone who is not emotionally dependent on external outcomes. Wealth energy is steady, not shaky. The wealthy also understand that energy is contagious. They create cultures, teams, and environments that reflect their inner standards. When someone with a billionaire mindset enters a room, the atmosphere shifts, not because they are better, but because they are intentional. Their posture, tone, clarity, emotional presence, and self-trust redefine what is possible for everyone around them. Their energy stretches the collective perception of reality. This is why people feel richer around them, feel braver, feel more capable, feel more inspired. Wealth energy uplifts everyone it touches. But here's the most important truth. This magnetic field is not reserved for billionaires. It is available to anyone who chooses to embody internal coherence. When your beliefs align with your vision, when your actions align with your identity, when your energy aligns with your goals, you begin radiating certainty. And certainty attracts. It attracts money, people, opportunities, clients, partners, mentors, and resources you could never access from a place of doubt. People think wealth begins with strategy, but strategy only works when backed by energy that others trust. Wealth begins with identity. Wealth begins with inner alignment. Wealth begins with the energy you project into the world. This is why some people hustle endlessly and never break through, while others seem to rise effortlessly. It's not effort alone, it's the energy behind the effort. And once you understand this, you begin to take responsibility for your presence, your tone, your emotional state, your self-belief, your posture, your internal dialogue, your certainty. You begin to realize that wealth isn't something you chase. It's something you attract by becoming a person whose energy communicates expansion, confidence, clarity, and purpose. The wealth energy field is not mystical. It is psychological alignment displayed energetically. When you cultivate that alignment, you stop begging for opportunities, and opportunities start begging for you. Topic 8. The invisible barriers. How the poor subconscious sabotages success and how billionaires break the pattern. After a decade studying the minds of billionaires, CEOs, founders, self-made millionaires, and visionary leaders, I discovered a truth that is as uncomfortable as it is liberating. Most people are not blocked by the world. They are blocked by their subconscious programming. They are blocked by invisible psychological structures built long before adulthood. Structures that govern their decisions, limit their potential, and quietly sabotage their progress without them realizing it. And when you compare the subconscious beliefs of wealthy individuals with those who struggle, the difference is radical. It's like observing two completely different operating systems. The first time this hit me was while reading the early life stories of some of the world's most successful entrepreneurs. I expected to find common traits like brilliance, exceptional talent, or genius-level intelligence. But that wasn't the pattern. The real pattern was internal freedom. Billionaires had fewer psychological constraints. They didn't carry the same emotional weight, the same guilt around success, the same fear of visibility, the same subconscious loyalty to comfort that keeps most people stuck. Their subconscious allowed wealth. Meanwhile, the subconscious of the poor resisted it. And this is where the story becomes truly fascinating. Because when I dug deeper into neuroscience, behavioral psychology, epigenetics, and even childhood imprinting, it became obvious. People unconsciously recreate the emotional environment they grew up in. If someone grew up in chaos, they subconsciously return to chaos. If they grew up in scarcity, they subconsciously sabotage abundance. If they grew up feeling unworthy, they subconsciously push away opportunities that threaten that identity. The subconscious is not concerned with success. It is concerned with familiarity. It will always pull you back to what feels emotionally safe, even if that safety is destroying your potential. This is why you can give two people the same opportunity, the same mentor, the same course, the same amount of money, and one rises while the other collapses. It has nothing to do with intelligence and everything to do with internal programming. If the subconscious believes wealth is dangerous, success will isolate me, money will change who I am, I don't deserve more than my family had, people like me don't become rich, then that person will take actions that reinforce these beliefs. They won't do it consciously. They'll procrastinate, forget, avoid, freeze, get distracted, quit, or choose the wrong things. Self-sabotage always looks like external failure, but it begins as internal conflict. As I studied this more deeply, I noticed something extraordinary among wealthy individuals. They had redefined what emotional safety meant. Their subconscious did not interpret growth as danger. It interpreted stagnation as danger. That is the opposite of the poor mindset. Poor thinkers crave stability, even if that stability is painful, because they were conditioned to believe that change equals risk. Rich thinkers crave expansion because they were conditioned, or they conditioned themselves, to believe that change equals possibility. Their subconscious supports their goals instead of fighting them. One example that illustrates this beautifully is Sara Blakely's upbringing. Her father encouraged failure. He normalized it. He rewired her subconscious to believe that mistakes are progress, not shame. Now imagine how someone like that approaches entrepreneurship compared to someone whose parents punished mistakes, criticized curiosity, or shamed ambition. The subconscious of the wealthy is primed for growth. The subconscious of the poor is primed for protection. This is the invisible battle happening beneath the surface of every decision. Another example is Oprah. Her journey is filled with trauma, adversity, and emotional wounds that could have hardened her, limited her, or stopped her completely. But instead, she transformed those wounds into wisdom. She reframed pain as purpose. She gave new meaning to her past. And in doing so, she broke the subconscious patterns that would have kept her trapped. This is a common trait among billionaires and self-made success stories. They reinterpret the past in a way that empowers them, not imprisons them. Their subconscious becomes fertile ground for growth because they refuse to let old stories define their identity. One of the most eye-opening discoveries I made is that billionaire-level thinkers consciously upgrade their environments to force subconscious evolution. They surround themselves with people who normalize high achievement. They place themselves in rooms where ambition is the baseline, not the exception. They seek mentorship not for strategy, but for identity expansion. They know the subconscious adapts to its emotional surroundings, so they choose surroundings that match their future, not their past. Meanwhile, the poor mindset stays emotionally loyal to environments that shrink their potential. They keep the same circle, the same beliefs, the same behaviors, even when those environments no longer serve who they want to become. They fear outgrowing people. They fear surpassing their origins. They fear becoming too much, too big, too different. And that fear silently directs their choices. This invisible loyalty to the past is one of the most powerful subconscious barriers to wealth. Billionaires break this pattern ruthlessly, not by rejecting their past, but by refusing to let it dictate their ceiling. They choose a new identity, and then they choose an environment that supports that identity. They upgrade their subconscious through repetition, exposure, visualization, meditation, and intentional self-talk. They feed the mind the blueprint of their future until the mind adopts it as truth. Another subconscious difference between rich and poor is the relationship with discomfort. Poor thinkers associate discomfort with danger. Their subconscious says, retreat. Rich thinkers associate discomfort with evolution. Their subconscious says, lean in. This single difference transforms careers, businesses, relationships, and financial destinies. The rich are not fearless. They're familiar with fear. They've trained their subconscious to stay open during uncertainty instead of shutting down. They've desensitized themselves to emotional turbulence. They've practiced courage until it became their default internal state. And here's something breathtaking I learned. When your subconscious aligns with your goals, effort decreases and opportunities increase. You stop fighting yourself. You stop resisting success. You stop sabotaging progress. You begin to behave like the version of you who already has the life you want. And the world responds accordingly. Everything becomes easier. Not because life changes, but because your relationship with life changes. Billionaires live in internal alignment. Poor thinkers live in internal conflict. And that conflict drains energy, clarity, confidence, momentum, and creativity. You cannot build extraordinary wealth while fighting an invisible war inside yourself. This is the great secret. Wealth is not an external journey. It is a subconscious upgrade. When you reprogram the beliefs, emotions, and identity that shape your reality, you unlock yourself. You release the internal resistance that has held you back for years. You step into a higher version of yourself, one capable of receiving more, creating more, attracting more, and sustaining more. And once this transformation begins, success is no longer a struggle. It becomes a natural expression of who you are. Topic 9. The Billionaire Decision Code. Why the rich take massive action while others stay paralyzed. If you had to reduce the difference between rich and poor to a single behavioral pattern, it would be this. Billionaires decide. They decide fast. They decide boldly. They decide repeatedly. And they decide from a place of identity, not fear. Meanwhile, poor thinkers hesitate, doubt, delay, wait, analyze, overthink, procrastinate, and ultimately freeze. Decision-making is not a skill in the wealthy mindset. It is a lifestyle. It is a habit. It is a reflex. And after 10 years of studying billionaire psychology, it became clear that wealthy individuals treat decisions differently from the rest of the world. Their decision code is the engine behind their success. The first time I recognized this pattern was while studying the early career of Jeff Bezos. When he discovered that internet usage was growing at an explosive rate, he made a decision in 48 hours that changed the world. He left a high-paying, prestigious job to build an online bookstore from his garage. Think about this for a moment. Most people would take months or years to decide. They would consult dozens of people, analyze dozens of fears, create dozens of excuses. Bezos didn't wait. He said, "When I am 80, will I regret not trying this?" The answer was yes. Decision made. That is the billionaire decision code in its purest form. I noticed this same pattern in Sara Blakely. Before she built Spanx, she didn't ask for permission. She didn't wait for validation. She didn't study business for years. She didn't wait until she had investors, experience, or expertise. She simply made a decision. She cut the toes off a pair of pantyhose, created a prototype, and kept going, even when every manufacturer rejected her. She didn't stop to ask, "What if I fail?" She asked, "What's the next step?" That shift is everything. Poor thinkers stay stuck because they ask questions that lead to paralysis. Rich thinkers ask questions that lead to motion. Over and over, I saw this theme. Wealthy individuals take imperfect action faster than poor thinkers take perfect action. They don't wait for the stars to align. They don't wait for conditions to be safe. They don't wait for confidence to magically appear. They generate confidence by acting before they feel ready. Action creates clarity. Action creates momentum. Action creates opportunity. And action creates identity. Every time you make a decision aligned with your future self, you strengthen the identity of that version of you. Every time you hesitate, you reinforce the identity of someone who doubts themselves. This is why poor thinkers struggle so much. They believe decisions require certainty. They believe decisions require complete information. They believe decisions require feeling confident. But billionaires know decisions require none of that. Decisions require direction. They require intention. They require courage. And they require trust in yourself. The rich decide based on vision. The poor decide based on fear. One of the most powerful examples of this came from Henry Ford. When he decided to produce an affordable automobile, everyone told him it was impossible. Industry experts dismissed him. Investors doubted him. Engineers challenged him. But Ford didn't slow down. He made a decision and committed to it with such intensity that his team eventually aligned with his belief. Because that's what decisions do. They ripple outward. They influence others. They create a gravitational pull. People follow someone who decides with certainty. Another example is Oprah. Long before she became a global icon, she made one key decision. She would no longer dim her light to make others comfortable. She would pursue her truth, her strengths, her intuition. That decision shaped her entire career. She didn't wait for external permission to expand. She decided to expand. She didn't wait for conditions to be perfect. She acted from identity. That single decision set the foundation for everything she built afterward. But here is the deeper truth behind the billionaire decision code. Wealthy people trust themselves. Poor thinkers do not. Rich thinkers assume they can figure things out. Poor thinkers assume they will fail. Rich thinkers believe problems are solvable. Poor thinkers believe problems are dangerous. This internal trust is the psychological foundation that makes decisive behavior possible. When you trust yourself, you move. When you don't trust yourself, you freeze. I saw this vividly when studying Elon Musk. His decisions look outrageous from the outside because most people cannot comprehend the confidence required to bet everything on ideas that may take decades to succeed. But Musk doesn't see decisions as final outcomes. He sees them as starting points. Decisions create pathways. They reveal information. They move energy. And if he encounters setbacks, he adjusts. He calls decisions vectors, directions, not destinies. Poor thinkers treat decisions like irreversible traps. Rich thinkers treat decisions like experiments that lead to evolution. Another key difference is that billionaires separate decisions from emotion. They don't wait until they feel like taking action. They don't allow fear or doubt to dictate their behavior. They decide based on logic, strategy, and alignment with long-term vision, even when emotions disagree. Poor thinkers do the opposite. They let temporary feelings shape permanent outcomes. They wait to feel motivated. They wait to feel confident. They wait to feel comfortable. That wait becomes a lifetime. Decisions also expose a core truth. Your destiny is shaped not by the decisions you make occasionally, but by the decisions you make consistently. Billionaires make decisions quickly because they know decisions are the gateway to momentum. Momentum is the gateway to progress. Progress is the gateway to results. And results reinforce belief. Wealth is built on this cycle of decision, action, feedback, adjustment, expansion. Meanwhile, poverty is built on hesitation, avoidance, stagnation, frustration, regret. The rich don't get stuck in the illusion of the right decision. They understand there is no perfect choice. There is only movement or stagnation, and movement, any movement, creates new possibilities. Poor thinkers get trapped in analysis paralysis because they fear choosing wrong. But not deciding is the ultimate wrong decision. It kills opportunities before they're even born. One of the most surprising things I learned is that the wealthy often regret indecision far more than failure. Failures teach. Indecision tortures. Failures move you forward. Indecision keeps you frozen. Failures refine your strategy. Indecision erodes your confidence. Billionaires understand that success is the result of thousands of micro-decisions made in alignment with a vision long before any evidence exists. Their life is built by action, not hesitation. This is why billionaires experience exponential growth. Every decisive action compounds. Every move opens a new door. Every commitment builds a new layer of identity. Every risk, taken intelligently, creates leverage. The poor mindset collapses under the weight of decisions. The rich mindset grows stronger from making them. And perhaps the most liberating truth is this: decisive people create their own luck. They move toward opportunities that others are too hesitant to reach. They start projects that others only dream about. They say yes to ideas that others fear. They gather experience, knowledge, and connections simply because they are in motion. Motion opens doors. Stagnation closes them. Understanding the billionaire decision code changes everything. Because once you realize that wealthy individuals are not extraordinary, they are simply decisive, you begin to see what's possible for you. Decisions are not reserved for the rich. They are accessible to anyone who chooses to lead their life with clarity, courage, and commitment. Your entire life can change the moment you decide to stop hesitating and start moving. Decision is identity. Decision is energy. Decision is momentum. Decision is destiny. Topic 10. The moment everything changes. Choose your future before it arrives. After 10 years studying billionaire psychology, decoding their decisions, analyzing their emotional patterns, observing their habits, interviewing their teams, reading their stories, breaking down their failures, and witnessing their reinventions, one truth rises above everything else. Wealth is not something you chase. Wealth is something you become. And becoming is a choice, a decision you make long before anyone sees the results. Every billionaire I studied had a defining moment where they realized the world wasn't going to hand them a better life. No opportunity was going to magically appear. No perfect conditions were coming to rescue them. They had to choose themselves. They had to choose their vision. They had to choose their future before that future existed. This is the turning point that separates those who rise from those who remain stuck. The wealthy do not wait for proof. They do not wait for permission. They do not wait for guarantees. They decide who they are becoming, and then they live in alignment with that identity until the world eventually agrees. This is the transformation that changes everything. Once you choose your future self with conviction, your behavior changes, your energy changes, your emotional baseline changes. Your standards rise, your tolerance for excuses collapses, your capacity for discomfort expands. You begin saying yes to what your old self avoided and no to what your old self entertained. The path to wealth becomes less about effort and more about alignment. I realized something profound while observing the life paths of people like Oprah, Bezos, Jobs, Musk, Buffett, Blakely, and so many others. They were ordinary until they decided not to be. They had fear, limitations, insecurities, doubts, and past wounds. They were not born with superhuman confidence. They built it. They were not born with unshakable clarity. They created it. They were not born destined for greatness. They stepped into greatness by refusing to shrink back into the version of themselves that the world expected. And that is the invitation of this video: not to admire billionaires, not to idolize them, but to study the psychological architecture that made their success inevitable and to apply it to your own life. Because you do not need to build a global empire to embody a wealthy mindset. You do not need millions of dollars in your account to think like someone capable of creating extraordinary opportunities. You simply need to choose a higher version of yourself and then build a life that matches that decision. The most impactful lesson I learned is that the gap between rich and poor is not a gap of money. It is a gap of courage. It is a gap of identity. It is a gap of emotional mastery. It is a gap of time perspective. It is a gap of internal alignment. Wealthy individuals live from the inside out, while most people live from the outside in. The wealthy ask, "Who am I becoming?" The poor ask, "What is happening to me?" The wealthy build from vision. The poor build from memory. The wealthy choose expansion. The poor choose protection. The wealthy choose responsibility. The poor choose excuses. And every one of those choices creates a destiny. You do not need a perfect plan to begin. You do not need certainty to move. You do not need approval to rise. You simply need to decide that remaining where you are is no longer an option. When you make that decision, truly make it, the world responds. Opportunities begin to appear. People begin to support you. Circumstances begin to shift. Your mind unlocks ideas that were hidden by fear. Your subconscious aligns with your new identity, and the decisions you once avoided become natural. Momentum flows. Wealth begins as a feeling, before it ever becomes a number. The question then is not, how do I get rich? The real question is, who would I become if I stopped living from fear and started living from vision? That is the question that changes lives. Because when you step into the identity of someone who creates wealth, everything else begins to follow. Your habits evolve, your circle upgrades, your standards elevate, your mindset expands, your confidence strengthens. You begin designing your life instead of reacting to it. This is what billionaires understand. Your future is not predicted by your past. It is predicted by the identity you embody today. And now, at the end of this journey, after all the stories, all the insights, all the realizations, you are standing at the same crossroads every extraordinary person once faced. You can remain who you've been, repeating the patterns that have kept you safe but small. Or you can step into the version of you that your future is begging you to become. You can wait for life to change. Or you can become the force that changes it. You can remain in the energy of hesitation. Or you can step into the energy of decisive creation. This is the moment everything changes. Not because the world shifts, but because you do. Wealth begins the second you refuse to live as a smaller version of yourself. Prosperity begins when you align your identity with your destiny. Success begins when you choose your future before it arrives. And when you make that choice, your entire life begins to rise to meet it. If this video opened your mind, awakened your potential, or helped you see yourself differently, then subscribe to the channel. Click like, share this video with someone who needs it, and leave a comment telling me which insight hit you the hardest. Your future is waiting, and we are building it together, one powerful decision at a time.